So, biomechanical movement signs of the coaches: flaring of the knee when running, top end acceleration and running steps, lateral lifting of the hip during that running. So let me explain that, and we'll go to, I'll just give you some examples of how this happens. So right here on the first step, I'm not sure which runner this is, this one particular right here, coming out of the blocks, you'll see how this is in line. Okay, and this is, he may not truly have this issue we're talking about, but we're just using this as an example. Then the second step, you'll see, okay, right here, what will happen is this leg will even flare out more compared to the one that previous. And you'll also notice that what happened here was this. So I'm saying on his right side, his psoas is actually working, which you can review the psoas video at some point. This is a sign that his psoas is working. But what happens here, you'll see how this hip kind of rolls up to the right, which will cause that leg to flare out during acceleration. So you'll see as he recovers, that leg flares out more. This hip doesn't get crunched up like the other one. If you roll this back, you'll notice he's got a greater hip lift on this side than the other side. So everything's basically being compressed by the quad and the abs, which also tells me that this rib, if you feel between the hip bone and the rib, at this point in time, this athlete will have less fingers between his hip bone and rib on his left side than his right side. Okay, so as he accelerates, you can see he's lifting his hip more on the one side and flaring his leg out on the other. So I also found a top end speed running, and let me go back here. So the point for this is happens so fast. This is why you can't teach an athlete to stabilize his hip, hold it down. It's impossible. This is a movement pattern that's ingrained by the brain so that the body survives its ability to make sure that it can run and accelerate. So the big thing is, for an example, is when you use RPR, I can go in there, effectively reset the quad in a matter of a few seconds, and this hip doesn't lift. So running techniques, in my opinion, or any kind of technique, if you have a flaw and you can fix that flaw without coaching the athlete, and it's just a natural movement versus trying to have to teach him that. Could you imagine him saying, okay, on my left side, I can't flare my right leg out or left leg out on my left side with every other step? It's more or less impossible. So let's take a look at this top end speed movement here. So which we have is slow motion sprint, and you'll notice the leg strikes the ground here. Let's go back. You'll notice as this leg pulls through on the right, his right side, it's in line here. Leg strikes back down. Now here's the quad on the left side. Here's the quad problem. The other side doesn't have it. See how he flares his leg out to the left? This is a compensation pattern. It should be flared in a little bit because that tells me the psoas is working correctly. The previous athlete here, his psoas was working correctly, because if it wasn't, in this position, the quad would be, the kneecap would be out to the left side here if the psoas wasn't working and it was solely the quad. Now, you can see he flared his knee out. This one, he'll bring his knee through and the knee doesn't flare out. Let me show you that one more time. So here we go. That leg cycles through up on the left, his right side, our left, is not flared out. Now this side, right there it was, flared out as it came up. Right there, it's flaring out, and now what happens is this athlete's quad is obviously more dominant. It's too dominant. It's messing with the motor pattern, and you have an athlete that could get injured with, which I'll cover the injuries here in a little bit.